Welcome to a Wednesday damage report. You know what that means. You guessed it, it's Big News Wednesday on the Damage Report. And you know what? The biggest news and the best gift, maybe the treat of the tricks that happened yesterday. It's no other way to say it. Jordan Yule joins me on the program. He's the guest. He's the fun part. He's a new Angelino. Just want to point that out. He's finally made the move to the best city in the entire world, Los Angeles. Let's keep it real. And he's enjoying his time here. Matter of fact, he has an awesome new hat. Because you know what? When you come to the city of angels, it blesses you with new hat styles. What's going on, Jordan?
Jayar, I'm happy to be here. Yeah, I'm getting accustomed to LA. You know, I've been practicing popular LA phrases like "it's cold" and "oh my God, it's raining." So I'm still getting used to it, but I love it here so far.
You're getting there. You're almost there fully. It's chilly, but you have to make sure you say it when it's about 70 degrees. You can't say it when it's actually chilly. And when it's 95 degrees outside, make sure you go to the deepest parts of the hottest points of the valley. Put on a hoodie, put a beanie on, some glasses, some gloves, some thick sweatpants, boots, and walk around on the streets and let people go, what the hell is he doing? Because it happens every summer. Just want to keep that real. Glad you guys are here. Glad you're with us as well, Jordan. Lots to talk about today. But I just told you guys before we jumped on, we were talking about Jordan's move out here, and it didn't have anything to do with it outside of I was thinking about Halloween and everywhere that he's out that way. And I was gonna ask you, since it was just Halloween yesterday, I stumbled down a rabbit hole on the internet, and I found myself watching all of these scary videos, and I thought that was just fun. Next thing you know, I'm watching these real haunted videos of people in their houses. There's a page that collects all of them from many different people and just shows instance after instance after instance. And I was like, this is fun. It's obviously fake, but it's fun. And I don't know to the degree to which, I don't want to spook you out in your new place, to which degree you go into places and think, let me make sure this place is clear of energies, because my wife definitely does that. Where are you on that scale? Just because I'm curious now, because that came to mind.
So I love horror movies, and I think they're a blast, but I don't think any of it is real. I don't bother with any of the spirits or haunting or anything like that. I think it'd be even fun to go to what is purportedly a haunted house or a haunted asylum, something like that.
That's what people do.
See a real haunted site. That'd be cool. But I also just don't think that any of it is real.
That's the type of person that should go on these things. These guys go on these old, abandoned, mental health facilities. They go into old, abandoned prisons and hospitals and schools. And like, oh my God, that door just opened and closed. The people who don't believe it are the ones that should be going, because the people who have some kind of a thought that it's possible shouldn't be there, because they're gonna freak out, run around, pee themselves, all that stuff. But maybe we'll get a good expose. I'll be your cameraman if you put the headlight on and roll through the back of an abandoned prison. Let's make some content.
Let's do it. Yeah.
Real or fake? Later, since Jordan's out here now. Thanks you guys again for joining us. Go ahead, like, subscribe, share this stream to your friends. If you guys are ghost hunters, tellers, believers, non-believers, I'm looking for your comments in the as we go to the break after these first couple stories, because I really want to know where the dragons are on this whole idea of ghosts or not ghosts. Let's go to some things going on in our actual government, though, that are pretty scary themselves, because House Republicans are still running the show, and they have a lot of plans, a lot of bad plans. That's not the surprising part. The surprising part is how blatant they are about it. Let's go ahead and jump into that. House is back in session with a new speaker. We all know this, and now they have lots of things they want to get to, all kinds of things they want to get to. Censoring representatives, expelling George Santos. We mentioned that yesterday. Impeaching Joe Biden, unsurprisingly, and also helping out rich folks. That's kind of across the board, but it doesn't matter the party we're talking about. So there is one more thing that's happening as far as how American people should be looking for this. They're looking to defund the IRS through some tricky way that they can, that's pretty obvious and right in front of everyone's face. Let's go to this new speaker and how he's approaching these things from the Washington Post. There's new legislation. It's been released by the House Rules Committee, and it calls for approving roughly $14 billion, primarily in military aid to Israel, and cutting about the same amount from the IRS budget. President Biden has proposed giving Israel roughly the same amount in aid, but did not call for offsetting cuts to other parts of the budget. It's a normal thing that all Republicans like to do. Let's take money from somewhere else. Usually it's from programs that help, folks in normal circumstances, Americans that pay their taxes. But in this case, They're going after the IRS. There's reasons behind that. The new speaker, Representative Mike Johnson, as we mentioned, has said that this new expenditure must be covered by other spending reductions to avoid adding to the debt. Biden also called for the Israel aid to be packaged with roughly $60 billion for Ukraine, an approach that the Republican bill rejected. The legislation reflects the Republicans' ongoing determination to undo the IRS expansion that Biden secured in 2022 in the Inflation Reduction Act, and it boosted the agency's funding by $80 billion to improve taxpayer services and pay for more enforcement against actions against wealthy tax cheats. Keep that in mind. So Biden and the House Republicans agreed to repeal roughly $20 billion of that $80 billion as part of a deal in May to suspend the U.S. debt ceiling. And now Republicans are pushing for reductions because, of course, they are. After they also talk about how they don't want to cut Social Security, Medicare, and all the rest of these benefits, which we'll get to as well. But after you make a deal with someone, they go, oh, he made a deal. Now it's time for us to steamroll him. That's what Republicans act. So as of now, it seems to be a little bit dead in the Senate, though, because they're not going to jump on board. But the media isn't really pointing out this trade-off that they're having between the IRS and the, $14 billion and the $14 billion they want to send to Israel for aid. So a bunch of mainstream outlets aren't including these facts. So it looks like they're just doing something to help an ally. By the way, bombing innocent folks, that's a different story. But let's jump to this next part about this, because using the IRS funding to offset the Israel aid might not actually save any money. Oddly, the nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office estimated in 2022 that the $80 billion in IRS expansion would cut the deficit by more than $100 billion by improving collections and enforcement. In other words, if they have more IRS capabilities to look into some of these rich tax cheats, they'll be paying their taxes correctly and to the fullest amount without dodging, the way Donald Trump has always bragged about himself doing. And then that money will actually go to the American people, to other folks who actually don't dodge their taxes. But I'm pretty sure these rich folks, via these politicians, generally Republican politicians, tell people we're talking to defund the IRS. The IRS always comes after you. Yes, they do, and they always will. Who they don't come after because of all the extra money that they don't have are the rich folks who are getting away with tons and tons of money and cheating as far as this goes. So first thoughts here, Jordan, because this is the first aspect of the insanity that they're already pushing.
So Democrats have, in part, a winning message on this. It is they are trying to protect tax cheats. Like you pointed out, the increased funding to the IRS improved collections enforcement. It helped go after the wealthy who were not paying their fair share. That's something that is a winning message across the board. You ask anybody, regardless of their political affiliation, they don't think it's fair when the wealthy cheat on their taxes. Maybe you'll have some, hardline, right-wing party line person who will, do logistical backflips to justify the wealthy exploiting tax loopholes. But any reasonable person would agree that's not a system we want to live in. So that's the part of their winning message. But what they're trying to do is conflate this, and unfortunately, with funding for Israel, which is not a winning message across the board, and certainly not at the same level as tax enforcement. Because what we're seeing now as this conflict prolongs is more and more innocent people dying. And it's harder to make that case to voters that we have to keep funding this, because you're not going to have any sort of nuance in a messaging discussion. It's going to get muddied. That's just how the media works. It's how politics works. And when they're seeing visceral images of refugee camps, of bakeries, of hospitals, of neighborhoods being devastated and destroyed, it's much harder to get behind Democrats on this issue. So unfortunately, by coupling this, which is what the Republicans are trying to do, they could end up tanking this altogether. And I mean, who knows what the outcome is going to be? We'll see as time goes on. You always are going to have moderate Democrats join, the risk of moderate Democrats joining Republicans on something like this. But it is a winning message to protect the IRS, and people see that. So unfortunately, this is what Mike Johnson is trying to do and weaponizing all of it.
Why is it that, there's these assumptions about folks. You know who doesn't like paying their taxes? Everyone. Of course, I can look at my paycheck and then look at the gross, what would have been, and be like, damn. Everybody does that. Nobody goes, oh, I can't wait for more taxes to come my way. What angers people is when one person's cheating on it, therefore, and when they're making tons more money than you and they're cheating on it. In fact, saving money more than the fact you even make, which would have been gross income, and they're cheating on it while you have to pay and make up that difference. That's where the cheating part comes in. So of course, no one wants to pay tons of taxes, but when someone who should be paying their share doesn't, and then you have to, why are we angry at the agency that we can actually get to enforce that difference and then get to those cheats? We've been brainwashed and believing we're supposed to worship rich people. They can do whatever the hell they want. That's how it's always worked. Republicans, now specifically in the House, always talking about how they're avoiding saying they're looking to cut Social Security and Medicare. It's another argument that Democrats like to go after them on. And every time they say they're not looking to do it, when it comes to actually doing it or not doing it, guess what? They're down to doing it. Because now House Republicans, they're now emboldened by that guy, Mike Johnson, the new speaker, and they're now coming for that Social Security and that Medicare. And their goal is to eliminate trillions of dollars from these programs' budgets. It's a quick screenshot of what Mike Johnson's 2020 budget proposal was a few years ago. And in the middle there, you're coming after Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, CHIP, Obamacare, of course. They've been trying to go after that since forever. So anything that comes to benefiting folks, regular Americans, they're coming after hardcore, completely blatantly in everyone's face as people go to these rallies and support the people who are looking to destroy your lives a little further. So they call for roughly $2 trillion in Medicare cuts, $3 trillion in Medicaid and Affordable Care Act cuts, and also $750 billion in Social Security cuts. Does that make much sense? There's more though. This budget proposal released by the Johnson-led RSC also endorsed raising the Social Security retirement age, lowering annual cost of living benefit increases, and advancing privatization efforts. They're giving so many middle fingers to you guys. And there's not enough people saying, when are we going to fight back against this and kick out all these guys who are looking to destroy your life further? Further, by the way, because this is the same thing they've always been on. These arguments about raising retirement ages and cutting Social Security and Medicare and never allowing Obamacare even being what it maybe could have been going on for a decade. More though, is before they got taken to the cleaners on these midterm elections, they then had to pause, but they're coming back for more. Because earlier this year, the RSC, which is now chaired by Kevin Hearn, issued a budget proposal that called for gradually raising the Social Security retirement age to 69. To change that will slash benefits, of course. And the RSC is comprised of 3/4 of the House Republican caucus, also proposed turning Medicare into a voucher program and massively cutting Medicaid, the Children's Health Insurance Program, and Affordable Care Act subsidies. In the middle of all those programs, I want you guys to really highlight and think about. I wish Republicans saw this enough. They're coming after the Children's Health Insurance Program. What about the children? What life of the child? What about when a child is born and they maybe have a health condition? F them is what Republicans, specifically Mike Johnson, who's a great Christian who loves children, doesn't give a damn about yours. Speaking of which, many people have probably voiced that, but do they care? Let's look at this chart of how much people actually care or approve of the things that they're looking to do. So that first level here of this map or this chart here, the blue, of course, is in favor. The middle gray is neither, and the oranges they're opposing. That first one is increasing taxes on households earning over $400,000 a year to pay for Medicare. 58% of people agree with that one. Now, the next ones, as you can see, all those orange numbers of 70%, 67, 75, and 79%, those four are raising the eligibility age for Medicare benefits from 65 to 67. 70% hate that. Increasing Medicare premiums, 67 hate that. Raising the eligibility for Social Security and benefits from 67 to 70. 75% people hate that. And lastly, reducing the size of Social Security benefits, 79%. So as you keep seeing people talking about how they're representing you and get this guy back in office, and you make sure you reelect me, ask them, where do they stand on these? Because when they're asked about it, they go, nobody's looking to cut Medicare and Social Security and raise the retirement age. And then when it comes to pen on paper, when it comes to them voting on these things and proposing these new bills, guess what they're looking to cut?
Yeah, it's a sleight of hand. They'll say, oh, we're not cutting it. We're just raising the age. But that is a cut. That is effectively a cut because that's 2 years of your life or more. And if it's 69, it's 4 years that you're not getting these benefits that you've paid into your entire working career. And this is something that is deeply unpopular, like this poll shows, but we've known before this poll that this is deeply unpopular, which is really why they'll talk about it, but so few politicians ever want to actually do it. And that's in part because the AARP is just the most powerful political group in the country. They mobilize voters. They explicitly direct them to action on this. Old people vote more than any other voting bloc. And a lot of young people don't like that, but that's just reality. And they get to dictate public policy. And once that narrative, once that plan or proposal permeates into retirement homes, assisted living facilities, you're going to have hundreds of thousands, if not millions of upset boomers and senior citizens. Like that's who it's affecting. And that's who's going to be upset. So this seems like a really doomed strategy, maybe for a quick short-term gain. And then the hopes would be that Democrats couldn't fix it because the House is so fractured and in shambles and nothing really gets passed in DC. I don't know if this will happen. That they're talking about it just shows ultimately how callous they are. It's like they saw this poll and they said, let's just do the exact opposite of what everyone wants. And that's how we're going to govern. And this disconnect from public opinion and public preference isn't just limited to this. We see it, to go back to how this story started, with our support for what Israel and the IDF is doing right now. A vast majority, especially of Democrats, want a ceasefire. And very few Democratic leaders, Democratic officials will even call for one. So it's very frustrating. Again, we're in this moment where Congress does not represent the will of the voters. And then every 2 years, you're just told, we'll get out and vote. And oh, by the way, anyone that tried to primary any of these people who don't reflect your will, we just went all out and tried to attack them. So it's just like, what do you do? What are we doing here?
It's a helpless situation. Look, I was mentioning this before. So, my insurance just went up. The rent just went up. Everything's State Farm Insurance. I found this out when I started reshopping insurance just for car. State Farm Insurance does not operate in California anymore. They've just left like a couple months ago because they talked about how the rates have gone up and just conducting business in the insurance industry in this state have gone up so much because of the computer chip shortages, whatever else. Getting parts, if someone has a mangled up car, costs them more. And then if they're raising their rates so much, people are upset about it. And they're like, F it, we're out of here. So the money is running out. We've been giving so much extra money to the rich, the corporations, the uber rich, and hoarding all of it. There's this whole thing, I don't know if people know this, there's a limited amount of money. So if we're consistently giving it all for however long, forever, to the richest of the rich, eventually there's no more left to take from anybody. So we have to start cutting programs that benefit those same people that we're giving middle fingers to. Social Security, Medicare, anything. If we had a healthcare system that actually was run by the government effectively and widespread enough, that'd be on the chopping block too. But instead, they all look at the Affordable Care Act to go after there. So you're trying to siphon as much money as possible out of as many areas as possible, so you can make your promises about what you're not going to cut and what you're not going to go after. But in order for you to go to your final goal, which as a politician has been paid off by the rich and the corporations, is to continue going after more until there's nothing left. I don't know where they expect more people to get more money from when they've got it all. That's where we're going. And I guess they expect people to just roll over and die. Who knows?
Our founding fathers are looking down at Biden with scorn right now. They're looking down on Biden and this administration with disbelief. We're going to make America great again. We're going to put America first. And we're going to have a great country. It's going to be called the United States of America.
Comforting words from, I guess, a founding father. We're going to call this new idea the United States of America. Maybe he is a founding father because he's found a way to somehow siphon the thoughts and ideas of founding fathers that are in the ground somewhere and turn to the dirt hundreds of years ago. Somehow they're telling him how disappointed they are in this country. Him, Donald Trump. So he's talking about how he's inventing the United States of America. He's also going to do something as far as fentanyl overdoses and deaths and that problem we have too. I mean, since you're inventing a country, maybe you can find a way to deal with that too.
Crooked Joe Biden is allowing massive quantities of deadly fentanyl to be smuggled across our wide open border, where it's killing hundreds of thousands of our fellow Americans each and every year. Crooked Joe Biden, the worst president, and by the way, the most incompetent president in the history of our country, seems to not care at all, but I do. Biden's open borders radicalism fuels this crisis. I will end this crisis, and together we will restore hope in America. I will send federal law enforcement to round up the gang members and street crews, charge them with crimes, and get them behind bars or get them out of our country. I will ask Congress to ensure that drug dealers, kingpins, and human traffickers receive the death penalty.
He's been on that for a while as well, too. Death penalty, death penalty. That's going to change everything. He's talking about synthetic opioids and how he's going to do the job. And look how horrible it is under Joe Biden. There's this small problem with that thought process. There's facts that actually could back that up or dispute it. Let's go to some of those. Here's a table showing the U.S. drug overdose deaths from synthetic opioids, the thing that Donald Trump was just talking about. 2015, the drug overdose deaths from those was 9,610. We're going to go from 2015 to 2021. It's gone from 9,610 to 19,500, 28,659, 31,525, 36,603. Those last few years, those rising years, I'm trying to remember. What year was Donald Trump elected? 2016. He was out in 2020. Those kept rising. And to be fair, as of the last couple of years, it's still rising because it's an issue in this country. And it's weird that this is president who said he can do something about it, but didn't do anything about it when he was in office. Not to say he has some kind of magic wand, but he's acting like he does. More details, though. The average annual growth rate of drug overdose deaths from synthetic opioids was 31% while Donald Trump was president. 31% as that growth rate. Between 2019 and 20, the last year of Trump's presidency, the increase in those deaths from synthetic opioids was 55%. And between 2020 and 2021, the first year of Biden's presidency, the increase in drug overdose deaths was 25%. Slow down that rate. But then again, I would love to see, the details as to why that happened. There's many factors that could change these things. And again, I think we put a little bit too much weight on a president. Get into office and suddenly there's not folks addicted to opioids or on fentanyl, that street drugs aren't coming through and dealing with and getting in the hands of so many different people. Because by the way, we don't give a damn in general. We just like to say so to get votes. Your thoughts, man?
Well, there are a range of responses that some people will make, from like legalizing drugs completely to what I think is a good approach, really investing at the community level in safe sites and also community like rehabilitation centers, and investing in community infrastructure to help treat addiction rather than criminalize it. You are not going to cure someone of addiction by throwing them in jail for a week or a couple of days or a month or however long. All you're going to do is introduce them to other people who allegedly break the law and make new friends, because they're going to come out, have a record, be stigmatized, probably have difficulty finding work, finding stable housing, and be in a situation where they're more likely to use after they return to society. So investing at the community level, where you have health professionals testing their drugs to make sure there isn't fentanyl in there, caring for them if they do overdose or something like that, and providing them with resources to help wean off a drug, get into rehab, kick their addiction. That's a much better and successful approach. As we've seen for decades, a war on drugs with a harsh criminal sentence for using does not solve the problem. Prohibition does not work. So what you need to do is invest in treatment rather than any sort of criminal penalties.
I had this conversation with Anna yesterday. It's always preventative versus punitive. And you see Donald Trump talking about the punitive approach. Death penalty, you got to go as far as possible. You have to go to the absolute fullest extent. Death penalty. That's going to keep people from wanting to do these types of crimes. It hasn't yet, because people get the death penalty every day on the streets when they're taking this stuff. Many times they're like, I don't care. What else is there? Or they're addicted to it to that degree that there's nothing else that their mind is looking for. It's an addiction. It's an addiction. And until you actually figure that out and treat people as humans versus just pieces of garbage, you could think, maybe I have an approach to save people's lives versus using their lives to help mine and act like I give a damn about any of this, because they really don't. If the people on the streets are the ones that are that are doing a lot of these drugs, how often do these politicians go out and actually talk and find out what it is that's going on? And these measures, these rehabilitation centers, they're not many, aren't getting run in a way that's actually helpful. What happens after they go into rehab, get off the drugs, are good for a month, and you get kicked right back out. Where do they go? Where do they go? Or how do they then get handed that next step? Many of these programs and services just don't do enough, because then if they do, too many of us will say, how dare you help that homeless person? How dare you help that drug addict? I don't care about them. Well, you should care about them, because that's part of the crime that you complain about. It's all connected. So when you just want to punish people, there's going to be someone else to get punished every time you get mad. If we try to prevent it, maybe we'll have fewer of these instances happening, which then leads to the offshoot or the things that happen afterwards because of it. For some reason, that simple thought process just doesn't stick. I know it could stick with politicians, but again, they don't care. Why would they commit money to trying to stop these things? They'd get voted out of office. I'm sorry, so I went far on that. So I was just talking about homelessness and, of course, drug use for a very long time. Donald Trump talked about it too.
When I'm back in the White House, we will use every tool, lever, and authority to get the homeless off our streets. We want to take care of them, but they have to be off our streets. Under my strategy, working with states, we will ban urban camping wherever possible. Violators of these bans will be arrested, but they will be given the option to accept treatment and services if they're willing to be rehabilitated. Many of them don't want that. For those who are just temporarily down on their luck, we will work to help them quickly reintegrate into a normal life. For those who have addictions, substance abuse, and common mental health problems, we will get them into treatment. And for those who are severely mentally ill and deeply disturbed, we will bring them back to mental institutions where they belong, with the goal of reintegrating them back into society once they are well enough to manage.
Jordan, not that Donald Trump should know this, because again, I still think we put too much weight on a president's ability to do everything. But if you say, I'm going to reacclimate people into normal life, we're going to go into rehabilitation centers, then we're going to throw anyone else who has any mental health conditions, we'll throw them into some facility where they belong. Then the next question should always be, okay, how? There's never that answer, because you think this is something he's going to follow up on if he actually gets elected? Do you think he gives a damn about what he just read that someone else wrote as he was stumbling through that? Rehabilitation, reacclimate. He saw something about throwing people into some facility. And he goes, that's the part he's stuck with, which they belong in. Everything else is just fodder for him. I'm curious what you think.
Yeah, I totally agree. That was my takeaway, because there's no substance here. We don't see Trump as a real detailed policy person. Somebody wrote that out because you kind of have to include it if you're talking about this stuff so you don't seem too callous. But the reality in this, let's just take it at face value. If what he says, if he wins and this is what he's going to do, what that would look like would just be putting homeless people who are temporarily homeless or unhoused, they would just end up in jail. Let's be real about that. Where is the funding for these facilities, for this program, for this care? And do you think a Republican, potentially a Republican House and potentially a Republican Senate would fund anything that would actually work to improve the lives of people? Of course not. It would just go to the corrections industry in this country, the private corrections industry, and you would see people ending up in prisons at potentially record rates. When in reality, what they need is, which he kind of alluded to, but he would never follow through on. We could see that, and based on everything that he has ever done in a political capacity, they would never receive treatment. They would never receive government funding for job training, for rehab, for housing. Are you kidding me? Nope, I can't imagine most people even believe this, but it is kind of incredible that he bothered to say it, because that's just not who he is. I think there's more weight to the, we should go after the death penalty for some of these people than there is on this part of the proposal.
Yeah, I mean, Donald Trump was a well-known teetotaler. So, and he's also a supremacist. So anybody who doesn't do, or especially if it's something that damages your body the way like alcoholism or drug use does, of course, if he's not one of those folks, he'll see himself as better and be like, garbage people, garbage people, garbage people. He needs to have people in general need to have some level of empathy and understanding where someone came from, what got them in their position. I've said it a million times now. I damn near go to sleep every night watching these interviews that this one guy does on YouTube with folks out in the streets and ask them how they got there, how they survived, what their previous life was, and many times, or their attempts at rehabilitation, their attempts at getting off the drugs and back in some kind of housing. The outside factors that keep them in those positions are stark, and they're not that hard to fix. We just have to want to and have to put a lot of money to it. Absolutely. Effective money to it, not just to stick in someone's pockets to say they're doing it. I'm way behind. Let's go to everyone talking about Donald Trump, Joe Biden. But it's James Comer now. He's got more news on that investigation. This is surprising.
We know not only there were crimes, we know there are cover-ups. We have mountains of evidence, and now we're ready to bring them in. We're in the downhill phase of this investigation now because we have so many documents. And we can bring these people in for depositions or committee hearings, whichever they choose. And we can ask these questions with evidence. This is a check you signed.
He's talking about the check that you signed. He's going to bring people in. James Comer is still continuing his investigation. Have at it. I've been saying it from the beginning. Have at it. Show us some evidence. Then maybe they're getting closer. That one check that we've talked about before with Joe Biden's brother, I believe James Biden reimbursed him $200,000. Yeah, Comer was talking about that. He has details about the check.
Why would James Biden be giving Joe Biden a loan? Is there any evidence to back that up as legitimate?
They're saying we saw the evidence, it was a loan. The evidence they're going by is in the memo line of the check. It says loan repayment. So that's good enough for Newsweek. That's good enough for the Democrats on the Oversight Committee. But, that's not good enough for anyone that has any type of financial literacy. I mean, this is, regardless of whether the Bidens come up with some kind of document that says it was a loan. I don't believe it was a loan, but I believe that they can manufacture some kind of document that says it is. The bottom line is this. The money that Jim Biden paid Joe Biden with was money that he influence peddled from that healthcare company in Florida. Mm-hmm. And he influence peddled them saying that Joe Biden could help them get money from the Middle East.
You guys hear any evidence there? Or did you hear Comer say, I don't believe it? That's what he said. He said, I don't believe it. That's evidence. And also, he's talking about how the memo of the check said loan. He goes, people with any kind of financial literacy would know where I see straight through that. Okay, cool. I don't have any financial literacy. What does that mean? If someone writes a loan at the bottom of a check and it's actually something else, what does loan mean? Is it an acronym for something else that means like I'm actually trying to defraud this whole thing? And actually, I'm looking for James Comer to not find me. He doesn't have to give any actual information. He has to say, I don't believe it. You know what they're actually doing? What I believe they're doing. And therefore, that's somehow fact with him. Let's look at this check again, though, because Jamie Raskin was talking about flash the checks. We've seen it a million times, and I'll read what Jamie Raskin then said as an explanation for it. Actually, you see, they cut out some of the actual information, but it said loan repayment. Maybe it's the way that he wrote it in cursive. Must be a problem. Here's what Raskin said. He wrote that the bank records provided to the committee clearly show that President Biden had $200,000 wired to his brother on January 12th of 18. And despite this clear evidence that James Biden received a loan from his brother on January 12th of 18 and paid him back 48 days later with a check for the same amount marked loan repayment, you continue to misrepresent the facts. Again, that's what Raskin said. But still more, Comer said more. He had emphasized that on the same day that James Biden wrote the $200,000 check to Joe, James received that same $200,000 from AmeriCorps Health. And Comer's accused James Biden of engaging in this shady influence peddling, trading on the Biden name. But Comer's presented no evidence that Joe Biden was involved in his brother's transactions with that company, let alone that Joe Biden undertook any official acts during his vice presidency or presidency to benefit his brother. I want to flash back to the dates we're talking about. 2018. Let's see. Was Joe Biden vice president in 2018? No. That was 2008. Was Joe Biden president? Was he also maybe president? Yeah, in 2018. I remember 2020 is that disputed election that these conservatives keep talking about. Weird that he has some kind of influence peddling happening when I guess he has some level of influence, but he wasn't vice president and he wasn't the president. It was like, I promise, James, I get in office in 2020, go ahead and take out this loan, do some weird dealings with AmeriCorps, and then I'll get you money back because I'm going to influence later. what kind of extra forward plan is this? Why don't you just do it right then? It doesn't make any sense. And until the evidence comes, which I will still keep an open mind for, all they are is grasping, Jordan.
Yeah, this is a really pathetic attempt. We haven't really seen much of this stuff break through beyond just what Hunter Biden, again, who is not the president, has been charged with or is facing penalties for, which if he broke the law, okay, punish him just like anybody else. I've maintained that since day one. I'm sure most people watching this agree. Yeah, if someone breaks the law, it doesn't matter how powerful they are, how politically connected they are. Yeah, charge him just like you would anybody else. That's the system we want, but we rarely see. This, I don't see what the smoking gun is here. They act like this is some big fine when you can see in the bank records, apparently, that it's a loan on in January of 2018 and paid back a couple months later. Okay, so what's the net gain here for either of them if it's just the same amount of money being passed back and forth? It shows their desperation. It shows how badly they want to kneecap Biden going into 2024. Maybe they don't even need to bother with this because he seems to be helping them and doing it on his own. He's making himself unpopular through his actions beyond this. Like, you're missing the forest for the trees here, guys. This is just really, really silly, and I can't believe they're still spending time on it.
If nothing else, it's helping him. So, okay, fine. Look, James Comer's got this entire thing on lock. He even has the next steps ready. Let's go to this next side, you guys.
We now know that Joe Biden benefited, and that's because we continue to receive bank documents. We have subpoenaed, I think we've issued 10 subpoenas pertaining to bank documents and pertaining to the Biden investigation. And you think, okay, we want to subpoena Jim Biden's bank accounts. Well, lo and behold, he's got, bunch of bank accounts. Hunter Biden, dozens and dozens of bank accounts for each shell company. And it's taken a long time to get this information in, but we have it in. We're able to trace the money now. Now we can bring the Bidens in and ask them specific questions, not just hearsay, because the Democrats could do that with Trump.
Just make up new stuff. I think he actually admitted on the back end there. We're gonna have these people come in and ask them direct questions, and it's not just gonna be hearsay, because apparently that's all it's been so far. Invite them in, talk to them, embarrass yourselves further. I can't wait. Or you know what? I'm gonna stop acting like it's a finished answer here. And they're gonna find all the evidence they can, because Joe Biden and James Biden and Hunter Biden are all gonna collapse and tell them all the dirt that they hadn't been getting at, because they got information now. You guys can hear us in between these, right? Because I like to give you guys some messages. We're way behind. It's almost the top of the hour. Let's jump down, you guys. John likes to skip the D block. So do I. Let's go to the E block, you guys, if that's okay with you. I'm really interested in this one. Mitch McConnell and threats for threatening Mitch McConnell. I mean, when he can. Mitch McConnell is now bluntly threatening fellow Republican senators, not even ones in the House. He did this in a private meeting, so of course it got leaked when they were talking about signing on to a bill from Josh Hawley from Missouri, running man Josh Hawley when January 6th went down. And he put forward this bill that would aim at limiting corporate money, bankrolling high-powered outside groups. Sounds pretty lib of you, Josh. He told them that many of them would, this being Mitch McConnell, told them that many of them would won their seats thanks to the powerful super PAC that the Kentucky Republican has long controlled. This is personal for Mitch. So let's jump to this from CNN. According to multiple sources familiar with the Tuesday lunch meeting, McConnell warned the Republican senators they could face incoming from the center right if they signed on to Hawley's bill. He also read off a list of senators who won their races amid heavily financial support from the Senate Leadership Fund, an outside group tied to the Republican leader that spends big on TV ads and battleground Senate races. On that list of senators, Josh effing Hawley. Okay, he's a reformed man. Maybe he didn't know where the money came from. He's just a man trying to serve the people. More though. So what is it about this bill that Mitch McConnell is so against? In this new bill called the Ending Corporate Influence on Elections Act, that might be Mitch McConnell's problem, is aimed at reversing the Supreme Court's 2010 Citizens United decision that loosened campaign finance laws. It's an effort that aligns the conservative Missouri Republican Josh Hawley with many Democrats. And his bill would ban publicly traded corporations from making independent expenditures and political advertisements, and ban those publicly traded companies from giving money to super PACs. Damn, is he working for Wolfpack? Because again, this is the thought of Wolfpack that was started years ago. Talk to elected officials across the board and their staffs and their people, Republicans, Democrats, independents. Maybe they're tired of being controlled by outside groups. Maybe they're tired of only raising money and trying to run for re-election. Maybe they want to actually legislate. Maybe. And if we get rid of the money, it's influencing them. Maybe they get the opportunity to actually be real. So in an interview, Josh Hawley defended his bill and said the corporate influence should be limited. He says, I think it's wrong. I think it's wrong as an original matter. I think it's warping our politics. And I see no reason for conservatives to defend it. It's wrong as a matter of the original meaning of the Constitution. It's bad for our elections. It's bad for our voters. And I just think on principle, we ought to be concerned. Really fast, before you jump in here, Jorby, let's look at these numbers from some of these contributors here. Graphic 4. This is outrageous. I know it's kind of a small graphic, but I want to point out that One Nation, which is in Virginia, has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different instances here. And the numbers go down from the top to bottom. $20 million at the end of September, $17 million. This is all from One Nation, $11 million again. And then 2 more from One Nation being $9 million 2 other times. And these other folks are give 11 and 10 and $7 million as well. To this one PAC, Mitch McConnell's being a part of, which he's probably not supposed to be, then that gets sent around. This is the money that's being given by whoever the hell this is, these thought groups, One Nation. I looked them up, and boy, do they hate them some CRT, and boy, do they want to push some of these conservative approaches. So they put hundreds of millions of dollars to super PACs, to politicians' pockets, and tells them, yo, we'll get you back in office with all this money, but you got to do what we tell you. In other words, they run the country. Thoughts, Jordan?
I don't trust Hawley's sincerity here. I think this is good on paper. I would, with everything he does, the devil's in the details. So will this only exclude, some forms of PACs? Will this also allow unlimited donations from individual donors? Because then it would just be, hey, here's a billionaire funneling money directly into my leadership fund, which is, a PAC that's connected to your campaign that they usually just take money from. Why he is doing this, though, is important. He has postured as a populist for years. He has never really done anything meaningful on that front. But right now, he is facing a very tough election, potentially against Lucas Kunce. Lucas Kunce has been a populist for years, and in his last election, which he narrowly lost in the primary to a self-funded billionaire, the heiress to a beer fortune, he was running this same campaign calling for an end of corporate money altogether in politics. That is somebody, if people in Missouri are concerned about that issue, that is somebody who you should support. Somebody who has shown they are committed to this and not doing it as some Johnny-come-lately trying to mitigate what will surely be an effective attack line in that election.
That's the approach. And look, we talked about Donald Trump earlier and many other politicians. They'll say as many things as they can when they're running. And then once they have the opportunity to actually implement or maybe carry out this agenda that they promised to folks, we're looking for re-election. I need to raise some money, bro. What are you talking about? Do something? It's ridiculous. So, Josh Hawley, maybe he's reading what the reality is of what many people think, and he's trying to appeal to them. I guess it's smart. It's a thought process. But then again, it shows just how much he actually doesn't care. Those are your principles. Or you can even say, you can even be wrong about something. I don't care. You can be wrong about something. And then later go, I used to support this stuff. I understand now that it's nonsense to support it because of A, B, and C, and therefore this is where I am. If you don't show that understanding, I can completely see the lack of trust in his sincerity in this, Jordan. So I like the point and well taken. Let's squeeze in. We got 4 minutes. Yeah, let's go back up to the D block. Stop messing with me, you guys. We got Supreme Court potential changes happening, or at least investigations into them. Senate Democrats, you guys, have had enough of Supreme Court and all of this corruption and dysfunction. Let's keep it real. It's Clarence Thomas. Senate Judiciary Committee leaders said that they would vote as soon as November 9th to authorize subpoenas for information on Harlan Crow, from Harlan Crow, Leonard Leo, and Robin Arkey II. And they're involved in paying off some of these folks. So let's jump into this. Senate Judiciary Committee leaders say that they would vote as soon as November 9th to authorize all of that stuff. And one being Harlan Crow, he's a close friend and benefactor to Justice Thomas. And from Leonard Leo, the conservative judicial activist. Senate Democrats do not need the vote of any Republican on the committee to authorize these subpoenas. No separate vote by the full Senate is also necessary. So it can just happen. Republicans there can't protect their homies. So this is what they're looking to find out. They're seeking detailed information about the full extent of Crow's gifts to Thomas. News reports about the justice's failure over many years to report private jet travel, real estate deals, and other gifts from Harlan Crow have prompted calls for the court to strengthen its ethics rules and for greater transparency about the justice's potential conflicts and recusal decisions. Again, the majority of Americans don't know the things that Clarence Thomas has ruled on, given opinion on, been a part of that directly affect the people that have paid him, that have taken on these lavish vacations and have been like best friends with for decades. It's just the way these things work. And now maybe we can find out this is all this is. So the committee also said Monday that it would also vote to issue a subpoena to conservative donor Robin Arkey II. ProPublica reported that Arkey provided Samuel Alito with a free fishing trip to Alaska in 2008. It was organized by Leo. And Alito has defended his decision not to disclose the trip in his annual financial report. So they're all upset. They don't want anything to do with this whole thing. And now there's maybe something that's gonna maybe push them to have some level of ethics. It's pretty telling, Jordan, when the folks who are supposed to be the most ethical and lifelong appointments in the country are fighting against being ethical.
Yeah, this really represents how broken that institution is, where we have people with lifetime appointments who are, in their eyes, free from any oversight or scrutiny, especially on issues of ethics, but still have untold power and are able to effectively legislate from the bench, deprive people of their rights, take rights away from people, give rights to corporations. This is a broken system. And I don't know what would come of any subpoenas rather than just the spectacle on the Hill. Maybe we'll get some viral clips. Yeah. we don't really have many mechanisms for them to do anything. You could call for impeachment. Congress could do that, but I don't think they will. I think they're too scared. Yeah. One thing they should do is pack the court, water down their votes, water down their influence. Then suddenly you won't see Thomas and Alito being on these vacations. You might see more of them going on vacations, but just that could be one way to limit their power when they're blatantly corrupt.
It'll be yacht trips all across the Supreme Court, all 15 of them. Who knows? Who cares? We got a couple more minutes left, don't we? A little bit more. I want to see what Mitch McConnell. So let's go to our SOT for this story, because Mitch McConnell was threatening. We mentioned a minute ago. Mitch McConnell was threatening fellow Republicans off of this bill when it comes to getting money out of politics. What does Mitch McConnell have to say about ethics in the Supreme Court?
Do you have any reaction to Senator Durbin's announcement that the Judiciary Committee is going to subpoena Harlan Crow, Robin Arkley, Leonard Leo as part of its Supreme Court ethics investigation?
Yeah, well, what he's targeting here is private citizens with no legislative purpose. I think it's completely and totally inappropriate.
Private citizens. These are just private citizens. You know, if you see Clarence Thomas walking down the street, he's just going to his local grocery store to pick up a carton of eggs. He's just a private citizen minding his own damn business, going on lavish vacations that pay for his decisions on the highest court in the country. He's just a private citizen that has a lifelong appointment and can do whatever the hell he wants. That's all. That's all it is. That's all we got time for in the first hour here, you guys. On the damage report, we got the aftermath coming up. Jordan Yule, AKA Jorby's, staying with me as we go into more stories, though. So, of course, you guys hang on. Of course, if you're not members yet, tyt.com/. I'm sorry, this is Member Appreciation Week. So if you're not a member yet, then you can get appreciated. tyt.com/notice for details on Member Appreciation Week, and join if you'd like to go ahead and join and be one of these cool kids. It's the way it is over here. But in the aftermath, we have more things happening. There's a Capitol rioter that decided to fight in court. It's craziness. We'll get to all that, a lot more. So hold on to those ass cheeks. We'll see you guys in a couple seconds.
Thanks for listening to the full episode of The Damage Report. Support our work, listen ad-free, access members-only bonus content, and more by subscribing to Apple Podcasts at apple.co/TYT. I'm your host, John Adarola. I'll see you soon.